The emperor brought back a beauty from the south, boasting he would make her empress. I firmly objected. Mother, why? She and I are a perfect match. You have the nerve to say that, digging up my long-hidden illegitimate daughter. After traveling incognito, the emperor returned with a woman. As rumored, she possessed an extraordinary, bewitching beauty. Her slender willow brows and faintly pink lipstick gave an illusion of purity untouched by the world, though every feature was meticulously crafted. Her maid Qiu Ling was utterly mesmerized. She looks exactly like someone. Mother, I must marry Shuang as my empress. Otherwise. The emperor glanced at Qin Shuang. Otherwise, I'll abdicate the throne. He was furious, but I was amused. Do as you please. You've been on your incognito tour for half a year, your presence makes no difference. Had you not returned, no one would have known. The emperor lowered his head, pouting like a child. I've been back for nearly half a month, yet no one summoned me to court. Qin Shuang clenched her fist and cleared her throat, prompting the emperor to return to the main topic. Mother, why won't you consent? Look how much Shuang'er and I resemble each other. Qiu Ling murmured, Your Majesty, they do bear a slight resemblance. Wasn't that obvious? Half-siblings sharing the same mother, it would be strange if they didn't look alike. The emperor pleaded with me, Mother, look, Shuang'er even resembles you somewhat. Isn't this fate? Enough, filial son. For your mother's sake, stop talking. Any more and the truth would spill. I had the emperor hand her over to me first to learn proper etiquette. The moment he left, Qin Shuang threw herself into my arms. Mother, I've finally seen you. Qin Shuang was none other than my illegitimate daughter, whom I'd raised in Jiangnan. Qiu Ling suddenly realized, no wonder Miss Qin, that fox spirit, looks exactly like your Majesty did back then. Qin Shuang beamed, of course I inherited my mother's true teachings. Ever since Qin Shuang's birth, I've journeyed south to Jiangnan every year, staying with her for several months. I watched Qin Shuang grow up, and our mother-daughter bond is exceptionally close. When she was young, she was practically carved from the same mold as me. Shuang, why are you here in the palace? Qin Shuang produced several books, slapping them confidently on the table, to find father. I scanned them one by one. The Demon Empress and the Prince, Boundless Romance, A Monk and the Demon Empress, A Few Tales, No Wise Ministers under the Demon Empress's skirt. Qiu Ling covered her mouth, good heavens. These are all banned books. And I had banned them all. Because the Demon Empress referred to here was me. Furious, I closed my eyes, clenched my fists, and silently repeated, this is my own flesh and blood. This is my own flesh and blood. Qin Shuang picked up the books and began introducing them one by one. The first one tells the story of Mother and the Regent Prince. At the emperor's deathbed, the empress and the regent prince were passionately entangled, enraging the old emperor to his death. My deafening silence spoke volumes. Was I really that wild? The second book tells the story of Mother and the imperial preceptor. In the Thousand Buddha Hall of the palace, the empress seduced the cold-hearted monk, causing him to break his vows. From then on, he could never achieve meditation again. Qin Shuang couldn't put it down. By the way, this one is incredibly popular. I only managed to get it on the black market. Even I, a pervert, couldn't dream up such twisted plots. The third book tells the story of Mother and the chief minister. After her childhood sweetheart became the ruling minister, he broke into the Empress Dowager's chambers late at night, using both force and persuasion. Qin Shuang remarked, this one's a late bloomer, but it's pretty popular now. She asked me, Mother, which one of these is my father? I felt awkward. Well, even I don't know that. Qin Shuang's expression turned strange. Mother, you said the palace was a place that devours people. So, it's your place that devours people, right? I sent Qin Shuang away and confiscated her 3 forbidden books. I'll hide under the covers to read them tonight. First time reading a banned book where I'm the protagonist. First up, Tales of a Poor Monk and the Demon Empress. The plot seemed decent at first glance, but it diverged wildly from reality. For starters, it was Grand Preceptor Xia Huaiji who threw himself at me. Back then, Xia Huaiji was staying in the palace to practice his cultivation. He looked like a fallen immortal, with features like a painting and an icy demeanor that made countless people swoon. But he didn't care about worldly affairs and didn't even know who I was. Until that night in the Thousand Buddha Hall, when he was drugged and happened to run into me. After a night of madness, he picked up the scattered clothes and wrapped his snow-white monk's robe around me. He vowed to renounce his monastic vows for me and marry me. I politely declined, suggesting we wait until later. For he was too strikingly handsome. After several entanglements, I only revealed myself as a palace maid serving the empress. When he discovered I was the empress, he refused to see me again and returned to Tiantong Temple. Yet the book portrays Xia Huaiji as utterly obsessed with me, unable to resist. This is simply so satisfying. I opened The Demon Empress and the Regent Prince, boundless romance once more. The book's basic plot is accurate, though it exaggerates the intensity far beyond reality. The Regent Prince Shaoqi and I once kept vigil together at the late emperor's deathbed. He waited for his elder brother's death, so he could become Regent Prince. I waited for my husband's death, so I could become Empress Dowager. He asked me, once you become Empress Dowager, what do you plan to do? I counted on my fingers, keep a dozen or so male favorites. And you? What are your plans as regent? Shaoqi chuckled, what? You want me to be your favorite? Just then, the late emperor experienced a final moment of clarity. Hearing those words, he drew his last breath. The last book I read was No Loyal Ministers Under the Demon Empress's Skirt. This author's skill clearly surpasses the previous two. The prose is delicate, narrated with grace, creating an incredibly immersive experience. Zhou Rukin, the youngest chief minister in our dynasty, is portrayed here as utterly love-struck. After a decade of arduous study and strategic advancement, he finally ascended to high office. On the day he became chief minister, he finally got his chance to claim his childhood sweetheart. But in truth, that night, amidst a raging blizzard, Zhou Rukin broke into my palace. He didn't resort to threats or persuasion. He simply said to me, Your Imperial Majesty, the Empress Dowager, won't you spare me a glance? Of course, Zhou Rukin is mine now. I've already decided who will be Qin Shuang's father. Qin Shuang was captured by Regent Prince Shaoqi. Rumor has it Shaoqi's eyes lit up, this girl bore an uncanny resemblance to his beloved. He intended to take Qin Shuang back as a substitute. I raced over. Shaoqi, release her this instant. Shaoqi narrowed his phoenix eyes. What? Does the Empress Dowager still presume to command me? Did you not say we had no connection? Qin Shuang was quite excited, so you're Regent Prince Shaoqi, huh? Shaoqi raised an eyebrow, see? This prince is quite popular with the ladies. The girls chasing me line up from here all the way to the city gates. Can you tell me about that moment with the Empress Dowager at her sickbed? Shaoqi and I both fell silent, glaring at Qin Shuang. Young ladies shouldn't pry into such matters. Qin Shuang turned her head away. Fine, don't tell me. I like the chief minister better anyway. Shaoqi yanked Qin Shuang's ear, gritting his teeth in fury. Do you think you're the Empress Dowager? That you can just pick whoever you like? Shaoqi tried to drag Qin Shuang back, but I blocked his path. Pei Luan, on what grounds? Unless you admit you still care for me. We're both Zhou family blood, he deliberately seduced you, that's why you broke up with me. I'd ended things with Shaoqi long ago. He was too clingy and too loud. For a time, he argued daily with the chief minister in court. Until Zhou Rukin intercepted him after the session. Your Highness, cease targeting this humble servant. Remember, however long you torment me, the Empress Dowager must comfort me afterward. Shaoqi nearly choked on his own rage then. Still holding Qin Shuang captive, Shaoqi awaited my response. I took a deep breath and pointed at Qin Shuang. Because she's your daughter. Shaoqi's face froze, his mouth hanging open. I helped close his jaw. He never imagined the story would unfold this way. Qin Shuang was quick to catch on. Father, do you still need me to be mother's stand-in? Shaoqi studied Qin Shuang closely, his gaze growing increasingly tender. No wonder you resemble your mother so much. You are my daughter, born to me and all one. I stepped forward and grabbed Shaoqi's arm. Keep this confidential. Shao Qi raised a finger. Shoo, I know. I rescued Qin Shuang from Shao Qi. Qin Shuang asked me, so, is Shao Qi really my father? If he thinks you are, then you are. When traveling far from home, having multiple fathers makes things easier. Qin Shuang looked at me with disdain. If even one's father is fake, then what, you tell me, is real? I sighed deeply. It seemed that for Qin Shuang's entry into the palace this time, I absolutely had to find her a father to fulfill my duty. Tonight, I'll take you to meet your father. As dusk fell, I brought Qin Shuang to my bedchamber to meet Zhou Rukin, the chief minister of the current reign. Zhou Rukin wore a white robe, his long hair half tied back, leaning against the bed frame with an undeniably elegant and charming air. His eyes were veiled by white satin, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Aoyuan, I've been waiting for you for so long. I was utterly mortified in front of my daughter. Qin Shuang remained silent for a long moment. Now I understand why Shao Qi said he deliberately seduced her. Qin Shuang turned and walked away. Personally, I don't think he's my father. I pulled her back. No, he is. Zhou Rukin pulled the ribbon from his eyes in shock. His entire face, down to his earlobes, flushed crimson, as if it might bleed. He scooped up his outer robe from the bed, hastily pulled it on, and casually pinned his hair back with a jade hairpin before standing. Alwan, you're back. And who is this young lady? Zhou Rukin's smile was gentle, that of a proper gentleman. The chief minister certainly possessed a certain charm. I told Zhou Rukin, this is Qin Shuang, our daughter. Qin Shuang's view of Zhou Rukin softened slightly. She bowed her head obediently and said, Good day, father. Zhou Rukin's eyes widened in surprise. He asked, Shuang, is it? How old are you? Qin Shuang replied, I've just passed my coming-of-age ceremony. Zhou Rukin's eyes softened with a smile, the corners of his lips curving gently, his tenderness perfectly measured. He spoke slowly, very good. Father will give you a proper gift another day. You may leave now. Your mother and I need to speak. Qin Shuang withdrew with proper courtesy. Zhou Rukin folded his arms across his chest, raising an eyebrow as he looked at me. He was so exasperated he was practically laughing. Pei Luan, do you know where I was 15 years ago? Still holed up in the Hanlin Academy writing books. I walked over to placate him. She wants to find her father. A stepfather is still a father, right? Zhou Rukin was rather speechless. He pulled me into his embrace without hesitation, pressing his face against mine, his tone tinged with a hint of reproach. Shao Qi targets me daily, and you expect me to raise his child? Trapped in his embrace, I turned my face to meet his gaze. You're not at a disadvantage. The child isn't yours, but the child's mother is. Zhou Rukin fell silent for a long moment before sighing, finally accepting this daughter. He turned me to face him, his tone tinged with reproach. Luan, next time, don't bring anyone in. I am, after all, the chief minister of the realm. What if word gets out? Ah, well. Zhou Rukin's reputation had long been ruined by Shao Qi's constant slander. Throughout history, rivalries between dynasties were commonplace. But for the regent prince to spend years relentlessly spreading rumors that the chief minister was a fox spirit truly ranks as the strangest tale in history. The emperor rose unusually early to attend court. He raised but one matter, his intent to crown Qin Shuang as empress. The military officers, led by the regent prince, voiced their opposition. The civil officials, spearheaded by Chief Minister Zhou, likewise protested. The emperor sought out Qin Shuang, weeping as he confessed, Shuanger, I am incompetent. I cannot make you my empress. Zhou Rukin and I hid in the shadows, eavesdropping on the gossip. Qin Shuang felt profound pity for her foolish imperial brother. Your Majesty, it's not that you're incapable, it's that the Empress Dowager is too capable. The emperor suddenly understood, so you're saying Mother Dowager made Uncle Zhou and Uncle Rukin oppose me? Qin Shuang fell silent for a moment, then pursed her lips, you're surprisingly polite. Seeing his goals unattainable, the emperor reverted to his slacker ways, refusing to attend court. No one paid him any mind. Within days, he declared his heart was broken and he would seek solace in monastic life. Mother, your humble son wishes to embrace Buddhism. I renounce the throne to become a disciple of the Buddha. I see you as a coward. The emperor actually fled to Tiantong Temple to become a monk. The abbot of Tiantong Temple sent someone to inform me. I had never set foot in Tiantong Temple, for I dared not face Xia Huaiji. I had intended to capture the emperor and leave immediately, but a torrential downpour struck, causing the mountain path to collapse. Qin Shuang and I spent the night at Tiantong Temple. The courtyard was laid out in a traditional quadrangle style. Qin Shuang stood beneath the eaves watching the rain. Suddenly, she turned to me and said, "Mother, come see. The monk across the way is truly divine in appearance." My fingers paused slightly as I slowly walked to the window and looked across. Beneath the opposite eaves stood a white-robed monk. His form was as slender as a bamboo shoot, his brows and eyes cool and distant, his presence transcending the mundane. It was indeed Xia Huaiji. After over a decade apart, his appearance had scarcely changed. Truly, he was a demonically handsome man. "Mother," I heard the imperial preceptor of old possess divine grace and jade-like beauty. "Who do you think is more handsome, him or this one?" Xia Huaiji's gaze flickered. He must have seen me, for he turned and entered the house. His nature hadn't changed one bit. He should at least have come over to ask how I've been. They say one night as husband and wife creates 100 days of affection. How many nights have we shared? What a heartless monk. He is the national preceptor, Xia Huaiji. A man so captivating even your mother would throw herself at him. Qin Shuang gasped in astonishment. Wow, he's my favorite male lead. But why is he so cold toward mother? I toyed with the cup in my hand, silent for a long moment before speaking. He's the detached Buddha's disciple, I'm the demon queen of the deep palace. If he hasn't cast a spell to destroy me, that's already generous. Qin Shuang leaned closer. Then tell me, how did the demon queen capture the Buddha's disciple? My reputation as the demon queen began when I was empress. I entered the palace at 15, the same age as Qin Shuang now, and was immediately granted the title of imperial consort. The late emperor summoned me to his bedchamber night after night for half a month, until I conceived and bore the only imperial prince in the harem. That the emperor, nearing 50 with a body that coughed at the slightest breeze, could still favor his consorts, and even father a child in his twilight years, was truly a subject for wild speculation. Thus, I became known throughout the land as the demon queen with extraordinary powers. Later, as the late emperor's health declined, Xia Huaiji entered the palace to practice his arts, praying for the emperor's health and longevity. Inside the Thousand Buddha Hall, Xia Huaiji's robes were disheveled. He draped his outer cloak over me. Who are you? Having broken my vows, I will return to secular life. I will not take advantage of you. I looked at him steadily. I could never tell him I was that demon empress. Qin Shuang turned her head to look at me. So you deceived him? Yes, I deceived him. I claimed to be the empress's maid. I also deceived him, saying that after leaving the palace in a few years, I would marry him. It was only later, while giving a sermon to the late emperor, that he discovered I was the empress. Before the eyes of all present, the usually cold and dignified national preceptor Xia Huaiji abruptly stopped his sermon. Silence descended instantly. Hundreds of people looked up at Xia Huaiji in bewilderment. He clutched the scroll of sutras, his fingertips turning slightly white. After that, Xia Huaiji left the palace decisively, and I never saw him again. Qin Shuang spread his hands, deeply disappointed. Mother, this story is too heartless. You ruined my Xia Huaiji. Stop addressing the master by his first name, and stop reading those forbidden books, they're warping your mind. The rain always stops eventually. I was preparing to return with the emperor when I realized Qin Shuang was missing. Qin Shuang wasn't satisfied with my story. Undeterred, she went to ask Xia Huaiji why he left the palace all those years ago. Xia Huaiji sat at his desk, pausing his writing brush as he lifted his gaze to meet mine. Empress Dowager, it took you until today to finally remember to ask me, did it? I quickly pulled Qin Shuang toward me before replying, you misunderstand. I didn't want to ask you. 15 years have passed, who still cares about a fleeting romance? Xia Huaiji stared at me, speaking slowly, Pei Luan, you only ever liked my appearance. Consider me that way. At least you didn't lose anything. Xia Huaiji gripped the pen too tightly, snapping it clean in two on the desk. Fine beads of blood welled between his fingers. How do you know I didn't lose out? I renounced my monastic vows long ago, yet lived as a guest at Tiantong Temple for 15 years. Did you not know what I was waiting for? Meeting those icy, clear eyes, my gaze faltered in shock. You were waiting for me? But you never sought me out. Xia Huaiji lowered his lashes, his smile growing colder. I did look for you. I'd been gone from the palace barely 3 months when you were already with Shao Qi. Qin Shuang leaned in silently. You didn't even have 3 months window? I leaned in silently. You don't understand. Some things can't wait even 3 months. Qin Shuang's face twisted at this, and she moved further away from me. I knew it. She twisted it again. After breaking up with Shao Qi, you set your sights on Zhou Rikin and never once thought of me. Pei Luan, you took my innocence, used me, and then discarded me. And you say I didn't suffer? Xia Huaiji was usually reserved, rarely speaking at such length. He still gripped the broken brush tightly, his fingertips turning slightly white, waiting for my explanation. I glanced at Qin Shuang and said flatly, then I admit I wronged you. I should have told you I was the empress long ago, instead of indulging in that fleeting pleasure. But years have passed, do you still want to dwell on it? Xia Huaiji remained silent for a long moment. He closed his eyes, suppressing an indescribable emotion. To Her Majesty, I was nothing more than that fleeting pleasure. Yes. First it was you, then Shao Qi, and now Zhou Rikin. After delivering my harsh words, I quickly pulled Qin Shuang away. As I dragged her forward, Qin Shuang kept glancing back at Xia Huaiji. Mother, he said he waited for you at Tiantong Temple for 15 years. Does that mean you were still together 15 years ago? Qin Shuang looked at me probingly. Mother, 15 years ago, who exactly did you bear me with? I bore you myself, all right? Now hurry up and come with me. The emperor leaned against the carriage, waiting obediently for us. His eyes lit up the moment he saw Qin Shuang. Just seeing him made me furious. It was all his fault for bringing Qin Shuang back and stirring up all this trouble. I climbed into the carriage and ordered Qin Shuang, you're going back to Jiangnan immediately. The emperor lifted his head. No. I want to marry Shuanger. I fell silent. What kind of nonsense was this? Could it get any more absurd? I pointed at the emperor, get out of here. Go to the carriage behind us. Qin Shuang sat obediently across from me. Under my furious gaze, she hesitated, then cautiously spoke. Mother, it was brother who fell for me at first sight. I didn't do anything. I was skeptical. You didn't encourage him to bring you to the palace? Qin Shuang flushed crimson, covering her face with both hands and lowering her head. Her voice trembled with sorrow. I had no choice. He was going to marry me outside anyway. I was momentarily speechless, only able to stroke Qin Shuang's head. The child had truly suffered. Qin Shuang looked at me with pleading eyes. Hurry and let me claim my ancestral lineage. Otherwise, I'm afraid brother might one day force himself on me, and I'd just vanish from this world. It was time for Qin Shuang to have a nominal father. I planned to have Qin Shuang entered into the Zhou family genealogy, as if she were an illegitimate child of Zhou Rikin being formally recognized. Regent Prince Shaoqi caught wind of this and refused to accept Qin Shuang, acknowledging the enemy as her father. How could my daughter call that fox spirit dad? Upon hearing this, Zhou Rikin sent word to Shaoqi, call her that if you must. I'll just consider her my granddaughter. Shaoqi was furious. He stormed to me, demanding an explanation. Shaoqi, Shuang is my daughter. I bore her and raised her. I let her take Zhou Rikin's surname so I could see her often. If she took yours, would I have to visit your estate to see her? Shaoqi's expression tightened as he looked up at me. Why not? You can enter my estate whenever you wish. Zhou Rikin emerged from the inner chambers, pacing. Of course not. I heard every trick you were playing. Shaoqi shot Zhou Rikin a cold glare. Is Lord Zhou so incapable? Why must he snatch my daughter too? As a scholar, Zhou Rikin never backed down in a verbal duel. Your Highness is quite capable indeed, yet you can't even acknowledge your own children. Shao Qi's expression froze. Struck at his weak point, his face darkened, his expression complex. 1. I refused to yield. After a long standoff, Shao Qi lowered his eyes and murmured, enough. I won't fight you over this. Shao Qi summoned Qin Shuang and spoke to her earnestly. He tried to make her understand that he was her biological father, while Zhou Rikin was merely my temporary husband. Qin Shuang nodded. I understand. You're my real dad, and he's my stepdad. Shao Qi felt deeply relieved. You must persuade your mother to return to me soon. At that moment, Zhou Rikin and I stood nearby. Shao Qi frantically signaled to Qin Shuang, clearly implying she should avenge her father. Qin Shuang looked sheepishly at him and said, Father, I'll try my best. Zhou Rikin, annoyed by Shao Qi's behavior, stepped in front of Qin Shuang, separating her from Shao Qi. I think your Highness should lead by example and properly discipline His Majesty. Stop bothering my Shuang. Shao Qi was momentarily speechless before storming off. A few days later, Shao Qi brought the emperor to the training grounds, where he lived and ate alongside the soldiers, enduring considerable hardship. The emperor, accustomed to being pampered, flew into a rage in the camp, cursing Shao Qi's mother. Someone promptly reported this to Shao Qi. Hearing that Shao Qi had stopped eating, the emperor personally rode out to beat him. My mother is your grandmother. You're quite the filial son. The emperor was chased around the entire camp, shouting regicide all the while, which only made Shao Qi strike him harder. The emperor wrote me a letter begging for help. Mother, my uncle wants to kill me. Come quickly to save me. I beg you. Zhou Rikin glanced at the letter in my hand, a pleased smile curling his lips. Thank goodness I raised you as a daughter. I felt helpless too. When the late emperor passed suddenly, Shao Qi was overwhelmed with court affairs and military responsibilities. I was newly pregnant and hurriedly left the palace for Jiangnan. The emperor had grown up without proper guidance, developing a stubborn and unruly nature, truly a hopeless case. Zhou Rikin folded the letter, let Shao Qi fret over it. He placed Qin Shuang's jade birth certificate before me. All matters are in order. But have you decided on Shuang's given name? The name Qin Shuang was merely a casual choice. For a child destined to join the esteemed Zhou family, it was indeed inadequate. I stared at the birth date and hour inscribed on the jade tablet and said, I have decided. Zhou Shuang Huai. Dipping my brush in tea, I wrote the character Huai on the table. Alwan, this Huai seems more like a boy's name. Zhou Rikin wiped away the character and replaced it with the homophone Hui. Zhou Shuang Huai. Several days later, Zhou Rikin took Qin Shuang to Tiantong Temple to pray for blessings. Zhou Rikin asked if I would join them, but I declined. After all, I was the Empress Dowager. In the past, I had accompanied Qin Shuang under the guise of a maid. Now that she was Zhou Rikin's daughter, I needed to keep my distance. Tiantong Temple was no place for trouble. Still, Zhou Rikin was a steady man. I told him to watch over Qin Shuang carefully to prevent any incidents. But what you fear most is what comes to pass. Trouble did arise. Shao Qi, headache-inducing as the emperor was, happened to visit Tiantong Temple as well. He encountered Qin Shuang there, and he and Zhou Rikin began trading sharp words once more. The character Hui is unsuitable for my daughter Shao Qi. It carries too much scholarly air. Zhou Rikin said this as Master Huaiji, carrying Buddhist scriptures, passed beneath the temple corridor. He stopped abruptly. Xia Huaiji hesitated for a moment before asking Zhou Rikin for Qin Shuang's birth chart. He studied it for a long time before returning it. Xia Huaiji turned to leave, but Shao Qi blocked his path. When the late emperor fell gravely ill, I searched everywhere for the imperial preceptor but found him not. Now, I see him before me. When the late emperor's illness first struck, some had said that if the imperial preceptor were present, there might still be hope for recovery. Yet Shao Qi could find no trace of Xia Huaiji. Hearing Shao Qi's words, Xia Huaiji's gaze turned icy. Suddenly, he thrust out his hand and shoved Shao Qi violently aside. Zhou Rikin held my hand and murmured to himself, Tell me, what could Xiaoqi have done to provoke Xia Huaiji into losing his composure and resorting to violence? I didn't respond. Zhou Rikin pondered briefly, tracing circles in my palm. When I was drafting documents in the Hanlin Academy, I heard that during the Grand Preceptor's scripture recitation for the late emperor, he abruptly stopped chanting upon catching sight of A Luan. Rumors have since proliferated about that incident. Today, seeing Xia Huaiji demand Qin Shuang's birth chart, I actually thought. Zhou Rikin stared intently into my eyes, as if trying to read something. Prime Minister, are you interrogating me? Xiaoqi verified Qin Shuang's birth chart long ago. It fits perfectly. She truly is his daughter. Zhou Rikin didn't believe me. Birth charts can be forged. But he gave me a promise. Alyuan, I wouldn't dare interrogate you. Regardless, from this day forward, Shuang is our daughter. I turned and wrapped my arms around his waist, my heart swelling with joy. Zhou Rikin drew a half branch of plum blossoms from his sleeve and placed it on my desk. After Xia Huaiji left, Xiaoqi heard His Majesty was in a foul mood and hurried away. I went to the hills behind Tiantong Temple and picked these plum blossoms for Luan. Zhou Rikin had always been like this since childhood. Whenever he went out, he would bring me something back. Had I not been summoned into the late emperor's harem, I likely would have married him. Living as an ordinary husband and wife with Zhou Rikin would have been a wonderful thing. Zhou Rikin asked if I wished to visit the emperor. The emperor was now confined within the regent's mansion. Qin Shuang, eager for the spectacle, had simply followed Xiaoqi back. Considering the emperor had been under his discipline for over a month, I felt it was time for me to see him too. Let Xiaoqi play the stern one while I play the gentle one, that would be ideal. Unexpectedly, upon arriving at the regent prince's residence, Xiaoqi fell ill. The emperor claimed Xiaoqi had merely been admonishing him when he suddenly collapsed, slipping into unconsciousness. I ordered the emperor taken away and placed under strict surveillance. Zhou Rikin dispatched messengers on swift horses to summon imperial physicians. Xiaoqi had always been robust. This illness was truly suspicious. Dozens of imperial physicians examined him one by one, then exchanged glances, seemingly afraid to speak. Zhou Rikin steadied me with his hand, urging them to speak freely. An elderly physician stepped forward, stating Xiaoqi's symptoms bore a striking resemblance to those of the late emperor 15 years prior. I knew how perilous the late emperor's illness had been. Xiaoqi absolutely must not die. I dug my fingers into my palm until it stung. Zhou Rikin's eyes flickered, his expression growing colder. He ordered Xiaoqi's personal guard, go to Tiantong Temple and fetch Xia Huaiji. He must come. If he refuses to come, bring him here by force. Qin Shuang rushed in from outside, leaning against the doorframe. Xia Huaiji is right at the gate. Xia Huaiji, right at the gate. Such coincidences simply don't exist. Xiaoqi fell ill immediately after returning from Tiantong Temple. Only Xia Huaiji could treat this illness, and here he was, waiting at the gate. This couldn't possibly be an illness. Though I gazed upon Xiaoqi's face, the image that surfaced in my mind was the ailing countenance of the late emperor. Xia Huaiji entered. Still unadorned, untouched by worldly dust. Zhou Rikin waved for everyone to withdraw. He helped me, dazed and disoriented, to sit down before turning his cold gaze upon Xia Huaiji. Even if Xiaoqi offended you greatly today, it doesn't warrant his death. Xia Huaiji fixed his gaze solely on me, replying indifferently, had I wished him dead, he would have died long ago. I merely sought to confirm something. I knew what Xia Huaiji sought to confirm, whether Qin Shuang was his daughter. He walked over to Xiaoqi, examined his condition, then turned to make small talk with me. Pei Luan, the only person I've ever truly resented in this life is Xiaoqi. He's no saint, but his luck has been far too good. Xia Huaiji took medicine from his robe, poured it into Xiaoqi's mouth, then gently lifted his chin to help him swallow. Only after completing these actions did he turn back, fixing his gaze steadily upon me. But my own fate is wretched. Even after abandoning my cultivation and doing everything possible, by the time I returned, the one I loved had already forsaken me. I stood frozen for a long moment. Someone once asked Xia Huaiji why he had renounced his monastic vows and entered the secular world. He replied that his resolve was insufficient, that he had broken his precepts. I had assumed it was the precept against sensual desire. It turned out it wasn't just that. It also included the precept against killing. Xia Huaiji pointed at Shaoqi. Within an hour, all it takes is a single lamp's worth of blood from a blood relative, and he will awaken, as if nothing had happened. Shaoqi's parents and elder brother were gone. His only remaining blood relatives were his children. Zhou Rukin dared not move, instead shifting his gaze to me. Xia Huaiji stepped before me, his fingers tapping lightly on the tabletop. Aoyuan, is Qin Shuang his daughter? You can calculate her birth date by projecting a few months forward. But this is a matter of life and death, you cannot take the risk. I buried my head low, refusing to utter a sound. Faced with my silence, Xia Huaiji grew even more certain of his guess. Aoyuan, when I learned you were the empress, I could scarcely sleep. I fled the palace, both to evade treating the late emperor and to shield you from blame. I never knew you submitted to Shaoqi because of our child. I lifted my head. Xia Huaiji extended his hand toward me. I can heal him. Just let me take Shuang back to Jiangnan. I'll wait there for you. Zhou Rukin froze upon hearing this. He turned away, leaving the choice to me. I stared at Xia Huaiji in shock. Did he even know what he was saying? Was he offering to be my secret lover? Xia Huaiji's eyelashes fluttered slightly. He gazed at me quietly, his eyes growing more resolute as the corners of his mouth curved upward. So it was much like what the books described. This man, as pure as the moonlight, had truly been brought down from his pedestal by me. Alas, times had changed. Xia Huaiji, all these years, I never asked why you left the palace, nor did you ever ask why I followed Shaoqi. Do you know what that means? Xia Huaiji's fingers paused slightly. What? I stood up. It means we were destined to be apart. I walked over to Shaoqi and stated firmly, Xia Huaiji, you needn't go to Jiangnan to guard me, for Qin Shuang truly is Shaoqi's daughter. Xia Huaiji looked at me in disbelief, his jade-like features cracking with subtle fissures. Xia Huaiji, if you wish to verify it, then verify it. Qin Shuang was at Shaoqi's residence. I'd made up my mind, I would obtain the blood. Half an incense stick later, I returned with Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang's face was pale, her hand wrapped in gauze, trailing behind me. I held the cup of fresh blood to Shaoqi's lips. Xia Huaiji tried to stop me but withdrew his hand. Luo, if he doesn't wake, I have other means. Don't worry, I won't let him die. I declined his offer, Shaoqi will wake. Zhou Rukin glanced at Qin Shuang's hand and asked with concern if it hurt. Qin Shuang pressed her lips together, looking deeply wronged. Xia Huaiji stepped forward to examine Qin Shuang's wound. He gently peeled back the gauze. A half-inch deep gash ran across the entire palm of Qin Shuang's hand. I had made it with the dagger earlier. Shaoqi slowly regained consciousness. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw me and softly called out, Alwan. Hearing Shaoqi's voice, Xia Huaiji's face turned deathly pale, his entire body stiffening. Shuang. She really is his daughter. I went to fetch water for Shaoqi, glancing at Xia Huaiji as I did so. It was merely a misunderstanding. Xia Huaiji, you should leave. Xia Huaiji gradually lost his footing. He braced himself on the table edge, head drooping limply, a chilling laugh rising from his chest. A misunderstanding? Then poisoning the late emperor wasn't a misunderstanding? Execute me. Shaoqi, who had just regained consciousness, was jolted by the news and began coughing violently. He truly did not want to let the murderer of the late emperor go. Shaoqi and the late emperor were brothers, sharing the same mother, and their bond was deeply affectionate. I signaled to Zhou Rukin, who personally escorted Xia Huaiji out. Shaoqi lay prostrate on the bed, demanding why I let him go. I rose to my feet, meeting Shaoqi's gaze as my voice grew icy. Shaoqi, have you forgotten how the late emperor died? What we've done isn't much better than his actions. Why dig up old graves? Rumors never arise without foundation. While the late emperor languished in his sickbed, Shaoqi and I did indeed share moments together. The sleeping chamber was thick with the bitter scent of medicine, which the palace attendants tried to mask with heavy incense. The two scents layered together, making it almost impossible to breathe. Xiaoqi sat by the table, bored, occasionally glancing at me. I seized the moment to meet his gaze. "Your Highness bored?" Xiaoqi never engaged in idle chatter with me. This time, he merely froze, his expression blank. I strolled over, stopped before him, and bent down. "I know it was you." Xiaoqi froze. "What?" I whispered against his ear, "It was you all those past 2 weeks." He knocked over a cup. I crouched down, gathered the shards into a handkerchief, and looked up at Xiaoqi. "Are you bored anymore?" His eyes darkened abruptly. And from that moment on, I was with Xiaoqi. Qin Shuang still stood in the room. Her face was blank, her lips slightly parted. The real palace secrets were far more thrilling than anything written in books. Xiaoqi's momentum faltered under my words. "Luan, the child is still here." Seeing his complexion unchanged, even showing flexibility, I knew Xia Huaiji hadn't deceived me. Xiaoqi was truly fine. Zhou Ricken entered from outside, likely having seen Xia Huaiji off. I would return with him too, taking the emperor back to the palace along the way. Qin Shuang, exhausted after a long day, stayed at Xiaoqi's residence to rest. Inside the carriage, the emperor's mouth was stuffed with a cloth ball, his eyes red from crying. Zhou Ricken reached in and removed the cloth ball from his mouth. The emperor immediately began protesting. "Uncle Ricken, mother wants to kill me. She's even scarier than Uncle Xia. She came in wielding a knife." The emperor stretched out his arm, revealing a fresh knife wound on his forearm. Zhou Ricken soothed the emperor, frowning and sighing, "Then I'll report her to the court." The emperor glanced at me out of the corner of his eye, his tone tinged with dissatisfaction. "Just report her? Can't we banish her to the cold palace?" I shot him a look, and the emperor fell silent. He clung tighter to Zhou Ricken's arm. I turned away, lifting the carriage curtain to let the evening breeze flow in. I felt suffocated. Zhou Ricken glanced at me, resting his hand on my shoulder and patting it gently with his fingers. I took several deep breaths before lowering the curtain and finally asked Zhou Ricken, "What did he say?" Zhou Ricken paused briefly before replying simply, "Aoyuan, he's leaving the capital. He likely won't return." I murmured a faint okay. After that, neither of us spoke for the rest of the journey. Only upon returning to the palace, after Zhou Ricken and I entered the bedchamber, did all my strength drain away. My legs felt like jelly, and I collapsed directly onto the bed. Zhou Ricken stood by the bedside and sighed. "Qin Shuang is Xia Huaiji's daughter. Why did you hide this from him?" I closed my eyes, my cheeks icy cold, my voice growing strained. "You heard it yourself. If he knew, he wouldn't let go." Zhou Ricken sat down. "Luan, so what? So what?" Xia Huaiji was like the bright moon in the mountains, pure as ice, his heart as clear as jade. His love was the same. He would rather endure 15 years of solitary vigil at Tiantong Temple than forgive me and Xiaoqi. I looked at Zhou Ricken. If he knew that Xiaoqi and I had already begun our affair long before him, he would likely waste another decades of his life. The first time the late emperor summoned me to his bedchamber, he found the candlelight glaring and ordered all lamps extinguished. In the pitch-black night, I waited a long time until someone touched me. I wrapped my arms around the figure beside me. After several nights, I realized this wasn't the late emperor, not a man of 50. I left a bite mark on his neck, and by day, I saw the mark on the young prince, Xiaoqi. So it was him. This was the late emperor's arrangement. Only after I became pregnant and gave birth to the prince did I cease attending his bedchamber. Xiaoqi pretended not to know me. After that, I became a small, idle empress. In the Thousand Buddha Hall, I met Xia Huaiji. Zhou Ricken sighed softly, his gaze fixed on me. But I saw how much Luan liked him. That year, Pei Luan transformed from imperial consort to the demon empress. Yet she was only 17. When Xia Huaiji said he would marry me, I truly wished I were a lowly maid. Then wait a few more years. Once the empress allows me to leave the palace, I can marry you. Xia Huaiji lifted his gaze to meet mine. Suddenly, he smiled, a smile so breathtakingly beautiful. He said, "But I've heard of the empress. Would she ever let you go?" He had heard of me. I froze. My reputation was dreadful. Especially the matters involving the emperor and Shao-Chi. I didn't know how to explain. I was the emperor's empress, yet I bore Shao-Chi a son. My face burned fiercely, and I could only flee in disarray. Back then, I lay awake every night, gazing at the moon, rehearsing my words in my mind. Perhaps I could tell Xia Huaiji that my situation was complicated, but none of it was by my choice. Would you run away with me? But Xia Huaiji saw me. He saw me appear alongside the late emperor. In that instant, not only did the sutra recitation cease, but my heart nearly stopped too. Not a single word of my prepared speech was used. I never saw Xia Huaiji again. Crouching on the floor of the Thousand Buddha Hall, I repeated to myself, just being the empress scared you away. And my situation is so complicated. Zhou Rukin wiped my tears with his hand, then tell me. Whatever concerns you, I'll take it all on. I leaned into Zhou Rukin's embrace, then I'll tell you. Later, I discovered I was pregnant. I dared not summon the imperial physician. I had to remain at the late emperor's sickbed daily, and the only face I saw each day was Shao-Chi's. Shao-Chi was searching for Xia Huaiji, but he couldn't find him. How could I possibly? I couldn't wait. I had to find a way. I told Zhou Rukin, truthfully, I felt awkward around Shao-Chi at first. But in my darkest hour, I realized how fortunate it was that Shao-Chi was there. Shao-Chi wasn't exactly a good man, but he wasn't a bad one either. The late emperor struggled to have children. Having Shao-Chi take his place in the imperial bedchamber would ensure a reliable successor to uphold the empire. Shao-Chi found the arrangement utterly bizarre. He resisted for years, never fully willing to comply. Moreover, the late emperor's concubines were all quite advanced in age. The late emperor himself was troubled by this. So he proposed, then I shall select a new one for you. That girl, whether it was misfortune or luck, was me, Pei Luan. At 15, I was still flying kites with Zhou Rukin. I had no idea that within the layers of vermilion walls and red tiles, my fate had already been sealed. Zhou Rukin was renowned for his talent, and his kites were exquisitely crafted. He said, if I marry you someday, I'll make you a phoenix kite. I asked him, what does a phoenix look like? Zhou Rukin replied, you, my dear. Your very name is a kind of phoenix. His words proved prophetic. It took Zhou Rukin 15 years to reach my side. He burst into my palace and asked if I would grant him a glance. I joked, but Minister Zhou, my situation is more complicated than you imagine. Extra chapter, before leaving the capital, Xia Huaiji asked Zhou Rukin for an item belonging to Pei Luan. Nearly every accessory Zhou Rukin wore had been gifted by Pei Luan. He hesitated for a long time, examining the sachets, jade pendants, and pouches he carried. Finally, he removed the green jade hairpin from his hair and gave it to Xia Huaiji. Xia Huaiji took it gently and asked, seems she was quite fond of you. He felt a twinge of resentment. Zhou Rukin's lips curved slightly. When a Luan likes someone, she puts her whole heart into it. Xia Huaiji nodded. Pei Luan had once liked him too. When she did, she'd often come to keep him company, doing nothing but staring at him, slightly lost in thought. He'd ask what she was looking at. Pei Luan would prop her face up, her expression quite serious. Xia Huaiji, you're truly beautiful. More beautiful than even me. Xia Huaiji stopped writing. It was as if he'd only just noticed how exceptionally beautiful Pei Luan was. Back then, he'd been bewitched, lost in Pei Luan's lies. He should have guessed her true identity long ago. Wearing the jade hairpin, Xia Huaiji traveled for 3 months before returning to the temple where he'd grown up as a child. He knew a lost ancient technique that could create a dream of returning to the past, but no one had ever tried it. And it was unlikely anyone ever would. Because whether it succeeded or failed, the caster would die. Xia Huaiji had demanded something from Pei Luan precisely for this dream weaving. He refused to believe she truly didn't love him. He wanted to know what had happened to Pei Luan during the 3 months he'd been away from the palace. Bright red blood surged from his wrist, soaking the jade hairpin in his palm. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself atop the preaching platform. Hundreds of people looked up in confusion at Xia Huaiji, who had abruptly stopped speaking. Pei Luan stood not far away, her face slightly pale. After returning this time, Xia Huaiji no longer insisted on refusing to meet Pei Luan as he had in his previous life. Pei Luan had come to see him. Xia Huaiji, I deceived you. I am actually the empress. Pei Luan still found it difficult to speak of her situation. Xia Huaiji gazed at her, hesitating before speaking. So, you cannot marry me? Pei Luan's eyes dimmed slightly. She lowered her head, staring at her toes, trying to sound calm as she said, my situation is complicated. You know I have a prince, Pei Luan lifted her head to look at Xia Huaiji, he is my child with. She pinched her thigh hard, steeled her resolve, and continued, he is my child with Shao Qi. Upon hearing these words, Xia Huaiji's mind exploded with a thunderous roar. The world around him fell into an eerie silence. He was momentarily deafened. This was something he had never imagined. His empress, Pei Luan, was like this. He regretted not truly killing Shao Qi. Pei Luan said earnestly, if you're not afraid of death, Xia Huaiji, let's run away together. Xia Huaiji froze. He was already dead. This was just a dream. But in this dream, 17-year-old Pei Luan wanted to run away with him. Did that mean the real Pei Luan had felt the same back then? A bitter ache welled up in Xia Huaiji's chest, yet he felt strangely content. Luan, I'll take you away. Xia Huaiji pulled Pei Luan tightly into his embrace, holding her with all his strength, savoring the joy of regaining what he'd lost. Pei Luan heard him repeating I'm sorry, though she didn't quite understand. She only stroked his back gently. Xia Huaiji closed his eyes. His death had been worth it. Xia Huaiji had poisoned both Zhao brothers, then expended great effort to smuggle Pei Luan out of the palace. Inside the carriage, Pei Luan asked him, Xia Huaiji, I know nothing. Will we have enough to eat? Xia Huaiji replied calmly, it matters not. I know a little medicine. I should be able to keep you alive. Pei Luan's interest piqued, she offered him her snow-white wrist. Then show me. A smile touched Xia Huaiji's lips as he casually took her pulse. Pei Luan watched his expression freeze. She tried to pull her hand back. Xia Huaiji, what's wrong? Shock filled Xia Huaiji's eyes. His fingers tightened around her wrist, his voice trembling. Luan. You're pregnant. Pei Luan froze at the words, shifting back slightly as she pressed her hand to her chest. Thank goodness I left the palace. Otherwise, I'd be dead. I haven't attended the emperor's bedchamber in ages. Xia Huaiji withdrew his hand. He understood now. At the regent's mansion, Pei Luan had deceived him. She had taken the emperor's blood, and Qin Shuang was indeed his daughter. Xia Huaiji turned his head to look at Pei Luan, who was trembling with fear. He reached out his arm, drawing her halfway into his embrace. Luan, don't be afraid. I'm here. How he wished he could have truly said those words to the Pei Luan of years past. Xia Huaiji's heart felt both intact and utterly shattered. He had arrogantly abandoned her. Left her alone to face despair. No wonder she said they were destined to be apart. Xia Huaiji lowered his head, sliding his hand from Pei Luan's nape to her face, lifting her chin. Pei Luan met his gaze. Xia Huaiji closed his eyes and kissed her. Luan, I won't question where you came from. I'll drown myself in this dream. Time passed swiftly, and Pei Luan gave birth safely. Xia Huaiji cradled the infant, his brow furrowing. How could it be a boy? He remembered Qin Shuang was a daughter. Pei Luan, however, showed no surprise. After entering the palace, she had taken numerous secret potions, said to ensure she bore an imperial son. Now she had given Xia Huaiji a son. Yet Xia Huaiji's reaction suggested he wasn't particularly pleased, insisting on naming the child Xia Shuang. Xia Huaiji now wore his hair long, secured with a jade hairpin, 2 strands framing his temple. Dressed in white, his demeanor carried a cool reserve. But cradling the infant, he softened like melting snow in early spring. Xia Huaiji was her husband. The thought stirred faint ripples in Pei Luan's heart. As Xia Shuang grew day by day, Xia Huaiji found him increasingly indistinguishable from Qin Shuang. At 15, Xia Shuang did encounter the young emperor venturing outside the palace. This emperor, orphaned of both parents, possessed an uncommonly mature demeanor and steadfast temperament. He did not dwell on the encounter with Xia Shuang, but instead returned to mention to his tutor that he had met a youth bearing a striking resemblance to his late mother. Zhou Rukin held a white stone, placing it gently upon the chessboard. For reasons unknown, he found himself plunged into a dream. In this dream, 15 years prior, Xia Huaiji had fled with Pei Luan. The late emperor and Shao Qi had passed away one after the other. He ascended to the position of chief minister, rescued Pei Luan's child from treacherous hands, upheld the state, and safeguarded the empire. Only then did Zhou Rukin realize that if Xia Huaiji had not left back then, his life would have unfolded this way. He resolved to visit Pei Luan, to see if she was living happily. Pei Luan pushed open the door, her expression startled. Zhou Rukin knew she had long forgotten him. He felt no sorrow. Gently, he reminded her that he was Zhou Rukin, and told her the emperor was a good child. Pei Luan bowed to him solemnly. Zhou Rukin inquired about her well-being, her husband's temperament, and assured her to speak freely if she faced any difficulties. Truthfully, Zhou Rukin understood Xia Huaiji's nature. He was a good man, yet stubbornly proud and resolute. Pei Luan's lips curved slightly at his mention of Xia Huaiji. He's wonderful, handsome, capable, and has a gentle temper. Zhou Rukin smiled. Seeking something to say, Pei Luan asked if he had married yet. Zhou Rukin nodded, his thoughts drifting to the Empress Dowager, Luan. I have married too. Pei Luan remarked with emotion, the girl who marries you must be very fortunate. Zhou Rukin paused. I'm the one who's lucky to have her. Pei Luan thought it was mere courtesy, but Zhou Rukin continued. She's beautiful, virtuous, level-headed, and meticulous. Despite the complexities of our household affairs, she manages everything flawlessly. Only, my rise to prominence came too slowly, forcing her to endure many years of hardship. Zhou Rukin's gaze drifted off, as if speaking to himself. Pei Luan was stunned by his words. After all, he was the youngest chief minister in all of history. Pei Luan raised his hand. Zhou Rukin, you're crying. Pei Luan stared at Zhou Rukin. Who had the chief minister dreamed of that he was actually crying? Zhou Rukin awoke. He knew that dream had been Xia Huaiji's. He didn't know how Xia Huaiji had managed it, but it was likely because of the hairpin he'd given him, dragging him into the dream as well. Zhou Rukin hugged Pei Luan briefly before rising to dress for court. Pei Luan turned to watch him. Almost every accessory he wore had been a gift from her. Zhou Rukin, what about the hairpin I gave you? Zhou Rukin paused, his hands still in motion. I gave it to someone. Pei Luan's expression froze, startled. She thought he'd lost it, not that he'd given it away. She reached out to brush aside the curtain, but Zhou Rukin immediately lifted it back. Luan, don't be upset. I gave it to Xia Huaiji. Pei Luan could guess Xia Huaiji had demanded it. You are not permitted to give away anything I have given you. Zhou Rukin agreed. He wouldn't have parted with it willingly either. It was just that Xia Huaiji seemed rather pitiful. After speaking, Pei Luan rose and retrieved a white jade bamboo-joined hairpin from her jewelry box, presenting it to him. As Pei Luan pinned the hairpin in his hair, Zhou Rukin stole a kiss on her cheek. Her grip loosened momentarily, forcing her to rearrange the pins. She guided Zhou Rukin back to his seat and broached the matter. Shuang's imperial decree still needs amendments. Zhou Rukin already knew. In his dream, upon seeing Xia Shuang, he understood why he alone must claim Chen Shuang. Precisely because Chen Shuang was nominally Shao Qi's bloodline, Pei Luan had him disguise himself as a woman, to prevent Shao Qi from suspecting he still had a son and thus refusing to relinquish her easily. Zhou Rukin tightened his grip on Pei Luan's hand. Rest assured. Leave it to me. Pei Luan secured his hair with a hairpin. After returning to the mansion and settling numerous matters, Zhou Rukin informed Chen Shuang he would send him away to study. They would lie low for 7 or 8 years. By the time the emperor matured, Shao Qi would likely have no further suspicions. The current Zhou Shuanghui, having shed her hairpins and gowns for a moon-white brocade robe, bore a striking resemblance to Xia Huaiji. The day Shaoqi discovered the truth would surely bring another storm of turmoil. After bidding farewell to Zhou Shuanghui outside the city walls, Zhou Ricken hadn't even entered the gates when he spotted the man he'd sent to follow Xia Huaiji. The man held out his palm. It was that jade hairpin, stained crimson by blood. Xia Huaiji was dead. The messenger reported he had taken his own life in the Buddhist hall, clutching this very pin. Zhou Ricken recalled that dream. So that had been Xia Huaiji's gift, a beautiful illusion woven with his life for Zhou Ricken and Pei Luan. Zhou Ricken closed his eyes, grieving deeply for a long moment before ordering Xia Huaiji and the hairpin to be buried together. He had never concealed anything from Pei Luan. This time, he was unsure. Zhou Ricken hurried into the palace. Pei Luan sat on the corridor, leaning forward to watch the fish. Zhou Ricken embraced her from behind, startling Pei Luan. Burying his face in her shoulder, his voice was muffled. Luan, if you could dream any dream your heart desired in this lifetime, what kind of beautiful dream would you choose? If what she desired was also Xia Huaiji's dream, he would tell her of Xia Huaiji's death. At least she would know he bore her no resentment, that he had even sunk into illusion to love her. Pei Luan pondered deeply. If she could shape her own dreams, how would she alter this life so fraught with hardship? Her thoughts drifted further and further away. Then I wish to stay home for a few years instead of entering the palace. I'll wait until you become the chief minister, and I'll be the chief minister's wife. Zhou Ricken, her childhood sweetheart, would one day rise to become the powerful chief minister, then come to propose to her. Just imagining it, Pei Luan couldn't suppress the smile that touched her lips. Hearing her words, Zhou Ricken felt his heart settle. That was his dream too. He and Pei Luan were the ones sharing the same dream. That was merely Xia Huaiji's dream. Pei Luan didn't know what he was thinking, nor did he respond to her words. She turned her face away and asked Zhou Ricken, Prime Minister, do you truly intend to remain unmarried for the rest of your life? Zhou Ricken looked at Pei Luan, drawing her closer as he replied in a deep voice, I already have a wife. I have a wife, a perfect companion for home and family. He had no intention of telling Pei Luan that Xia Huaiji was already dead. Hearing his words, Pei Luan felt a complex mix of emotions. She couldn't even blame this twist of fate. Because from the very beginning, what had been given to her was already the best the world could offer. The end.